this video, we are going to develop a simple TCP-based network server application using Node.js. In order to develop Node.js applications using Visual Studio, you should have Node.js and Node.js tools for Visual Studio already installed on your machine. If not, please go through my previous videos which cover the same. So let us start with File New Project. And as long as you have Node.js for Visual Studio installed, you should be able to see JavaScript branch, and inside that you should be able to see Node.js. Click on that and you are going to select blank Node.js console application for this video. I click OK. So this is going to create a Node.js console application. And you can see I have app.js. So app.js is the beginning point of our particular Node.js application, which is going to be executed. So the first statement I would like to write here is variable net equal to require net. So what exactly we are doing here using require net? So require is very similar to using or import statement in Java. So you have using statement in C#. So essentially the using statement means we are trying to import certain modules or certain other logic which may be available as part of other files. So even in this case, net, we can just consider that is nothing but a JavaScript file or a JavaScript module where we are trying to import that particular module, execute it, and once it executes it, it is going to return an object, and that particular object is going to be stored in my own variable called net. It doesn't need to be the same name as of net, but that is just the common practice. So you can also go for n in this case. So whatever. So the main understanding of require here is that it is going to load an external JavaScript file, and that particular file, once loaded, is going to be executed, and once it is executed, it is going to return an object through exports usually. And once that particular object is returned, we are going to hold that object inside a variable reference or reference variable called variable net. So Node.js has got several built-in modules. So net is a built-in module. Similarly, we have HTTP and several other modules. On top of that, we can have our own new modules to be installed by going through this npm. So npm stands for Node Package Manager. So we can always right click on that and say install new packages. So packages or modules mean the same here. So in this case, we are saying that please get net module which is already available as part of default installation of Node.js itself. So now that we have reference of net module, we are going to create a server. So I would like to have a variable called server and say net.createServer. So this is as simple as that. I am saying that please create a server, and that particular server instance is going to be made available inside a variable called server. A server usually is supposed to listen somewhere, and for that purpose I will say that this particular server has to listen at certain port number. So in this case I am saying that please listen at port number 9000. So you can provide any port number above 1024 to 65,000 something. So in this case I just chose a random number as 9000. You can just put in like 999 or whatever. So after that I am saying that once it starts listening, I would like to provide a message to the developer that the server has started listening for any of the requests. So that is usually provided in the form of a callback function. So in this case I can just say console.log, and I can say server listening to 9000 port. So this is just for our understanding here. So we created an instance of a server into the server variable, and on top of that we started listening at this particular port number 9000. Okay, now that we have server already started listening at 9000, let us consider, and the moment it started listening we are going to get this message, which is fine. But a server, whenever it is listening, obviously it should be able to handle the connections, requests, data, and so on. And at the same time the server needs to respond with some data whenever necessary. So for that purpose I am going to have a tie-up with an event called connection. So this is not connections on. So on, essentially you are registering an event, and in this case connection is an event, and that whenever that particular event is fired I would like to have a separate function to be executed. So let us see how this is going to work. So in this case what I'm saying is that whenever a new connection comes in, please execute my particular function. So that is essential. So what I'm saying is I'm going to listen at 9000 port, which is fine, but whenever a new connection comes to my server, please execute this particular function. Again, a connection is different and a request is different from TCP perspective. So this is different from HTTP. HTTP, usually we work with request and response, but from the TCP point of view, first of all we make a connection, and once the connection has been made, then we will be trying to push some data through the same connection and receive the response based on the server it is responding. So in this case, whenever a connection has been made, this is the function which gets executed. So in this case I do not want to write much, so all I would like to say is something like console.log, and I can say something like new client connection is made. So nothing much special, so just a simple message. So let us start work, let us start executing this thing and make sure that whatever the code we have written is working fine. So just execute this. And now you can see I got the same message whatever I meant earlier, server listening to 9000 port. So that is the same number I have in here, but I did not get this message, new client connection is made. So that message is not available here. So let us test this. So which means in order to have a connection to be made to my server, I need to have some other application, usually called as a client application. So the client essentially tries to connect to this server, and whenever any client connects to this server, it is supposed to display this particular message. So in order to test that, I need to have any of the client to be developed. It could be another Node.js application or a C# application working with TCP sockets or whatever, or Java application, or ASP.NET MVC application talking to Node.js TCP server. It could be any other client application, but that particular application should have TCP based communication mechanism or communication libraries supported in order to have certain connections to be made to my server. But in this case I'm not going to develop any clients, but I have a special tool called packet sender, which is freely downloadable. So which means you can just go to web and you can download packet sender. So you have that, and you go in here, and once you go there click on download, and you are good to go from there. So once you have that, all you have to do is open that packet sender, and you are provided with very simple interface right now. And here you can just try any kind of message which needs to be sent to my server. So in this case I just say test, nothing much special, and IP address. So to which server you would like to talk to. In this case it is localhost, so I can just say localhost, or I can also say 127.0.0.1. So either of these two mean the same. So 127.0.0.1 means it is a loopback adapter, or you can just say localhost. So either of these two should work. And what is my port number? It is 9000 at this moment, so I just say 9000. and using which protocol you would like to connect, using TCP or UDP. So in this case I developed TCP based application or TCP based server, and I would like to have TCP to be selected and click on send. So the moment I click on send, you can see I already received, or I can see the message from the server saying that new client connection has been made. So you can also see this is your request, or the first request to the server in order to connect to that, and these are all some kind of responses whatever we are going to receive from the server. So let us not focus much on the responses at this moment, but you can see that from IP, which is nothing but you, or which is nothing but myself in this case, from this port number, so currently this is working on a different port called this, is trying to connect to localhost to this port number using this TCP, and this is the information it is trying to send, and this is the hexadecimal version of test. So in that way you sent a message, the message has been forwarded successfully to our server, but we did not handle the message yet. But in this case what we did was, we simply the made sure that once a connection has been made, we just wanted to have a message to be displayed. Imagine I'm trying to send one more message, something like test, and in this case instead of test I would like to say sample, and click send. And now you can see there is one more connection which has been made. So which means once you click on send, for some reason this tool actually opens a connection, sends the message, and once some kind of response has been received from the server, it closes the connection. So all of this is actually two things. So we are making a connection, sending the message, and once you receive the message from the server back, you are actually closing the server as well. So that is important. But imagine you would like to have a continuous connection to be made. So let us consider I would like to send demo now. I can say persistent TCP, so which means the connection will be always made and it is not closed unless you ask it to close. So that will be open forever unless you really ask it to close, and as long as it is open you can send messages to the same connection over and over again without really having the overhead of reopening the connection and closing every time, just like the HTTP does. So let us see, once I enable this and click send, you can see a new connection has been made, which is the third connection now, and from now on I can send as many messages as possible, something like yay, click send, and now you can see I'm actually sending yay, and again I can say BBB. So let me minimize this a bit and click send, and now you can see you are using the same thing but no new connections are being made. It is still working with the same connection over and over again. So I can send one more and click send. So it is not really making new connections, so it is working on the same connection and sending the messages using the same connection which has been opened earlier. Okay, so let me close my Node.js application for a second. Now that we understood on how to create a server, how to make it listen at a particular port number, and how to make sure that you are executing certain functions or event handlers whenever new connections has been made, now is the time to enhance actually this particular application to the next level. Okay, the first thing, you always have a property called address, or it's not a property, it is a function which is going to be made available as part of this server instance. So you can always say something like server.address. So this is a special kind of method which gives the current server related address along with that particular port number. So let us see if this is working fine in our case. So let me execute this and test it. So forget about the first line, but the second line it says server listening to something. So it returns something and it is called as object, and it is just saying like server 2, as this is returning an object, it is just concatenating directly to the object. So this really doesn't make sense in our scenario. So what I would like to do is I would like to have that particular object, whatever it is returning, to be serialized to JSON and then respond back or display back to the user. So for that purpose, I can make use of C kind of semantics here, like %s, %f or something like that, and I have %j. So I can say comma now. So which means the first parameter here, I mean it is expecting a particular value from the first parameter, as because this is the first one, just like the C programming language. So whatever the object I'm getting here needs to be serialized to JSON. That is what %j stands for, and that particular JSON information has to be directly placed or inserted here at runtime. So once I press F5, now you can see it is totally giving that entire object representation in the form of JSON, like currently address. So it says colon colon, which is nothing but localhost, and under what IP address or related information, and the port number as well. So we do have certain other methods which are going to be made as part of this server.address. Now let us try to understand server.address in bit more depth. How did I know that there exists something like address method which is made available as part of server? So the hint is .create server. So we already knew that this is the method which is made available as part of the module, that is network module, and once you execute this particular method, we are going to get an instance, and I am calling that instance as server. So let us quickly look at the documentation of create server and what it is returning. So for that purpose, I can just open browser and type in Node.js docs, and let us go to manual and documentation here. So inside that you are going to see API documents, and inside that you have all of the table contents with several modules and information, and in that you are going to see net. So this is the module we are trying to use. So you can see there are further other modules like HTTPS and file system and so on. We are actually concentrating on only this module in this case. So the moment I say net, so I click on that net, and now you can see this net essentially gives us all the information related to what are all the what are all the classes or what are all the methods it has and how it is going to work. The entire documentation is available right here. So what we were using is net.createServer. This is the method we were trying to execute. And the moment we click on that, you can see you are going to have more and more information about it and even a sample about it. So let us again go back to the top. So whenever I execute create server, which is a method, it is going to return an instance of this particular class net.server. So we are actually receiving an instance of this class. So this particular class internally has got a method called address. So this is the address this is the method I'm actually trying to execute. So if you'd like to have more information or more methods to be learned, this is the way to go. You have other methods like close, address, and even the events too. You can see this is the event I am using, connection, right? That is the event I am really asking my particular event handler to be handling that particular event. So this is my event handler which actually registers with this event. So if you'd like to register another event for error, you can see there is something like error. So you can have another event handler which will be looking in the same fashion. Like I can have, so this could be something like error. So whenever I get any error, I can say like some error has occurred. So this is how you can actually trap each of those particular events and assign the event handlers or any event handlers in the form of anonymous functions or callback functions or whatever you would like to call it as. Okay, so now that we have some understanding about the create server, we need to understand the connection here. So let us look a bit more depth into the connection itself. So let us open this, and I have an event connection. So if I open this guy, you can see this event connection can send a parameter of type socket. So this is pretty important. So for example, if it is an event error, I can have an error object as parameter. So which means if I have an error, I can get a particular object straight from the event, which could be handled in this format. So which means this is the parameter which is going to be instantiated by Node.js itself and thrown to our function. So all the error related information, whenever it has occurred, is going to be made available as part of this particular object. Similarly, I am going to have another object here called socket. So this is exactly what the documentation says here. So connection event is likely to throw a particular object for more information. So that particular object is called socket object. And do we have any documentation for this socket? Certainly yes. So if you go to the same page at the top, you are going to see net.socket. So in fact, it is going to throw an instance of net.socket directly to our particular parameter. So this is nothing but an instance of net.socket, and the instance is automatically created or instantiated by Node.js framework itself. So once I have that, again I will have the luxury of all of these methods. So for example, let us consider I would like to have a remote address and remote port to be accessed using the same socket object. So I go back here and I would like to say variable remote address equal to socket dot remote address plus, and I can say socket dot remote port. So I'm accessing these two properties, remote address and remote port, directly using the documentation itself. So I have remote address and remote port. So I would like to access those two properties, concatenate them into one single variable remote address, and I would like to use that straight here. So in this case, I would like to use %s. So instead of %j, as because it is of type string, so I can say remote address. Okay, so let us see what is going on here. So I just execute this. Okay, now it is listening at 9000, which is fine. So I go back to my packet sender. So let me close everything. Let us start everything from the scratch for testing. So I open my packet sender, and now I would like to send a message, something like test, which is going to be sent to our particular server, but it is not going to be honored as because we did not write any code for that. So again, this is going to be localhost, and I would like to say 9000 and TCP, click send, and now you can see I am saying new client connection is made, and it has been made from this IP address and from this port number. So it is ::1 or ::, which is nothing but localhost. So from the localhost, from this port number, a connection has been made. So if you look here, you can see it is nothing but 49256. I have the same port number. So we are trying to communicate, which means this packet sender application is trying to communicate from this port number to this port number. So this packet sender is trying to send the message test to this port from this port. So we have a connection made between these two ports on the same server as of now. So in that way we can have more and more information once we have the connection made. And again, the whole point of this one is to get an understanding about the socket. So this socket is not a request, just like HTTP. So HTTP we always have the request and response, but in this case it is the complete socket. Socket means it maintains the connection once it has been made until and unless it has been asked to close. So this is pretty important. So as long as the client does not close the connection, Node.js works with the same socket object. Okay, so now that we have some understanding about the socket, now let us try to grab whatever you are sending. So here you are sending test. Even though my server is receiving it, we are not handling it. So let me handle whatever the data it is being sent. So let me quickly jump to our documentation here, and let us see what are all the events we have. We can see we have the events like data, error, close, and so on. So let me register all those events as part of my particular connection. So which means as part of this one, I can say socket.on. I would like to register for data, and similarly I would like to register for a couple more events. So in this case, whenever I have close event, and similarly whenever I have error. So usually close means once it has been closed, it is gone. The socket itself is gone. So which means the socket gets completely destroyed once a connection has been closed. If the connection is not closed, the socket will never be destroyed, and the same socket will be used for subsequent communications. So yes, close, we can just handle it only once. So here in this case, I can send the data multiple number of times, but I can close only once. So it is not necessary actually to have the on to be mentioned for a close event. So close event is usually fired once only for the socket. So for that purpose, we better go with once instead of on. Okay, so now that we have three of those particular events, we need to handle data event first. So which means this is the function which gets executed the moment we have any kind of data related event. Okay, and this particular data event, let us see what it does. Let me go to the data event here, and this particular data event is currently having a parameter called buffer. Okay, so to make our life easier, I just wanted to put something like D. So D is what the user is going to send or the client is going to send. So just let me have this particular D to be directly displayed as part of my console and see what's going on. So in this case, I would like to say something like okay, connection data from where it is coming. So in this case, I would like to say %s. Okay, and what is the data? So I would like to have another %s here, and I would like to say remote address and D. Okay, so what I'm saying is that the data from, so let's say data from, so okay, so data from this particular connection. So this is what I'm saying, data from this connection. So what is this %s? That is nothing but remote address, what we already had earlier. So the remote address will be displayed here. So which means whatever the data received from this remote address is going to be displayed here, and this directly resembles D, whatever it is going to be sent. So this D is automatically created by Node.js and will be thrown to our function. So let us see how this is working. So I just execute it. Okay, let me close this packet and restart it from the beginning, and our server started listening. So let me now say test and to IP address localhost 9000 and click send, and now you can see I actually got test automatically. So I'm saying that data from this particular remote client I received test. So imagine I am going to send something else. So in this case I would like to say demo and click send. You can see for each and every click I am actually having a new client connection being made, and that is important. And you can also see how I am having the respective information here. So for the first time I'm sending test, second time I sent demo, and you can see that is what I'm displaying at the server. Similarly, I can say something like sample and click send, and every time I click like that it is actually creating a new connection, and then that particular connection is being used, I mean the new connection is being used to actually send that information. Imagine I would like to select this one on, and then I would like to say yay, click send. A new connection has been made. You can see 263 and yay has been sent. And now let me say BBB, click send. And now from now onwards it is not going to make any kind of connection, but instead it uses the same connection over and over again without closing it or without recreating the new connections. So if you switch back to our log, you are going to see all of the information I am actually sending across. Okay, now let us modify this a bit. So let me close everything whatever I have in here. So let me close my server as well. Now currently I'm just receiving data from the client. Let us consider I would like to send some information back to the client. So for that purpose, this particular socket object has got a method called write. So if you go to the top and let us quickly examine the socket class here, it has got write. So I am going to use this one, and as you can see it is actually accepting some kind of data whatever you'd like to send, and once this data has been completed, if you'd like to have any function to execute, you can have that function to be provided, and it is optional. So which means once the data has been sent to the client, if you'd like to have any callback function to be executed, you can still provide it. But for now I just wanted to go with only data, which means whatever the information I would like to send to the client, you can just send it by using write and the data you would like to send. So let me use the same thing here. So I would like to say socket.write, and I can say hello with the same data whatever I received through the client. So I'm using the same D here. So which means if I send something like Scott, it is going to say hello Scott, and that is going to be written directly to the client itself. So let us make even these things clear. So on close I would like to say console.log connection from %s closed. So I would like to say this one as remote address. So which means whatever the remote address we are currently working with the connection, I mean socket, is going to be displayed here. So I just wanted to mention to the user something like the connection for the current socket has been closed. Similarly, if I have any errors here, I would like to say I would like to use the same kind of message here, and I just wanted to mention something like connection error. So connection just give me the name of the remote address there and a error, and now I would like to have the error related details to be displayed. So as I mentioned, error can have an object like ERR, so I can use the same object here, and that particular object internally has a property called message. So that particular object has a property called message. So where is that? Okay, I don't have it here, but I'm pretty sure that I have the message property which is made available as part of this particular object to get the error message. So this makes our particular socket complete. So which means you have created the server here, you are listening to the port here. Once a connection is being made, you are saying that all these operations need to be working for that particular connection. So whenever I say connection, you are talking to a socket. A socket is one single connection or persistent connection between the client and the server. So as long as the socket is in place, you are actually working with those events on, once, and on. So sorry, events data, close, and error. So this is the event which gets fired whenever the client sends some information to the server, and that information, whatever the client has sent to the server, is going to be stored in D, and we are using the same D to display at the server and add some message and to the same D and send back to the client. So we're going to see that one. And if client for some reason closes the connection or closes that particular persistent connection, the server is going to raise an event called close, and we are going to display that particular message at the server. For some reason, if the client abnormally terminates it, or it doesn't close in a regular fashion, which means the socket is not closed in a regular fashion or having some problems in the network or whatever, those errors might rise, and we are saying that please display that particular remote address with the respective error message straight at the server. So let us test all of these together. So I execute this, and now it is listening. So let me open my packet sender, and now I'm not going to use persistent TCP. So if I don't use persistent TCP, you can see how it works. So I'm saying that please send JAG to localhost 9000, and again I'm not using persistent TCP. So if I'm not using persistent TCP, it opens the connection, sends the message, and closes the connection immediately. So let us click send and see what's going on. Now you can see a connection has been made. The server received the data and the connection is closed. So you can see the same connection has been opened, the message has been received, and the connection has been closed by the client immediately. And let us see the log here. You can see I sent JAG, however from the server I received hello JAG. So let me clear the log and test it once again. So instead of JAG, I would like to say SCOT and say send, and now you can see I'm actually having a new server opened. You can see that 49268, it's not new server, it is new connection, or say new socket which has been opened, and in return, after sending Scott, I'm getting this one straight from the server. So in that way I have all of the necessary information to be actually handled at the server, where I am going to handle how the messages are going to be received and how I can send back, how I can handle close, and how I can handle error. If you would like to have any kind of colors or whatever to be added to these particular messages, we can actually work with some external module called colors. So for that purpose, you can just go in here, right click, and install new npm packages. So in here, search for colors, and let us take the first one, which is get colors in your Node.js console. So if you'd like to have any kind of colors to be made available as part of your console, we can just make use of this, and make sure that add to package is always checked, and click install package. So the moment I do that, it is going to get that module or say package into our particular application, and you can see I have colors module installed, colors package installed as part of my project. And if you open package.json, you are going to see the dependencies right here. So which means I have installed something like colors. So that is the dependency module or dependency package. So my particular Node.js application or package is currently depending on this module. That is what this one says. Okay, so now let us close this. And now I would like to have all sorts of colors to be added for this one. For that purpose, the first thing is that once a particular module is made available to your Node.js application, we need to import it and ask it to execute it, and in return we are going to have an instance after the execution of that particular JavaScript file. So in this case, I would like to say colors equal to require colors. So what this one means is, please go to this JavaScript file called colors, execute it, load it, execute it, and once the execution has finished, please get the returnable object into colors. So this is the object which holds everything related to the colors module. So now I can say server listening to. So currently I just wanted to leave it as white, but I would like to give better things for new client connection is made, and I would like to say dot green. And you can see the IntelliSense is quite powerful here, so it automatically knows like we are going to have these particular members to be made available as part of the respective strings here. And similarly, if the data has been sent, then I would like to have something like cyan. That is the color I would like to have. And if I am actually closing a connection from the client, I would like to have that one to be displayed in the form of yellow, and if there is an error, I would like to have that one as red. So let us see how this is going to work. So I execute this, and now you can see, as I did not put any color for server listening, it is just like that right there. So I clear everything, and now I'm going to have the same Scott to the local host to 9000 to be sent. And now you can see I have the connection which has been made, and at the same time displayed in the form of green, and similarly I have cyan, and I also have everything in the form of respective colors to what I have defined. So right now I do not have any kind of errors here, so that is the reason I could not demonstrate the red color here. So otherwise we are going to have the error messages which would also be displayed in the form of red color.